Hello, everyone. Be welcome. Thank you for being with us. We hope you had a good and refreshing lunch. We are going to start the second part of this workshop. We kindly ask you to switch off your cameras, please. You can use the chat or raise your hand to make questions or comments. As we said at the beginning of the workshop, this session will be recorded. I kindly ask the presenters to share the screen to see if everything is working. Before I present you, please, can you share the screen? Sébastien Durost, Guillaume, Reich, and Pierre Girard. Yes, everything is working. Okay, thank you. Can you turn on your cameras, please? Sébastien, Guillaume, Jean-Pierre. Hi, Sébastien. The first presentation of the afternoon will be in French and addresses the topic of the controlled vocabularies related to the archaeological data under the title Vocabulaire de recherche, vocabulaire contrôlé et modèle de données, une chaîne opératoire pour le partage des données archéologiques. Sébastien Durost is head of the editorial unit and digital strategy, BIBRACTE, Centre archéologique et européen, doctor of archaeology, proto-historian and dendrochronologist, has studied the climate at the end of the Iron Age and its social consequences, and it's now working on the interoperability of archaeological data from the BIBRACTE site. Guillaume Reich is research engineer at Maison des Sciences de l'Homme et de l'Environnement, Claude Nicolas Ledoux, PhD in archaeology, specialist in weaponry and warfare in the Celtic world, has studied the famous site of La Tène that gave its name to the Second Iron Age in Europe, and it's now carrying out research on large collections of Celtic weapons and on the interoperability of archaeological data. Jean-Pierre Girard, researcher at the Laboratoire Archéorient, Maison de l'Orient et de la Méditerranée, manages research projects on the sharing and opening of data in archaeology and heritage for professional and amateur audiences, such as interoperability of research data on the basis of controlled vocabulary and in the field of science with and for society, citizen science projects. Chers intervenants, merci de votre présence en ce workshop. Vous êtes les bienvenus. Nous sommes très heureux de vous avoir parmi nous. La parole, elle est à vous. Bonne présentation. Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Donc, nous nous sommes répartis comme nous allons faire la présentation en français. We apologize not to speak in English. We prefer speak French, but we translate our slides for you. Le projet que nous allons vous présenter a été élaboré par un consortium de nombreux acteurs de l'archéologie française et principalement par trois institutions. Le centre archéologique de BIBRACTE, qui est situé en Bourgogne, dans le centre de la France, dans le centre-est de la France. Le laboratoire Archéorient, qui est un laboratoire du CNRS, du Centre national de recherche scientifique français, et la Maison des sciences de l'homme et de l'environnement de Besançon, où travaille Guillaume. L'archéologie est essentiellement connue pour réunir beaucoup d'acteurs différents sur ces chantiers et pour réunir une diversité de données considérable, aussi bien des données sur des objets, sur des espaces, des données de dessin, des bases de données traditionnelles, des tableurs Excel, des choses très simples, et aussi des données d'une nature très différente. Il va y avoir des mesures, il va y avoir de la description textuelle, il va y avoir des dessins graphiques, des choses très différentes. Voilà. Pour décrire ces données, nous avons les projets que nous menons, que nous avons appelés hyperthéso ou BIBRACTE numérique, ont comme caractéristique commune de mettre le vocabulaire au centre de notre démarche pour essayer de construire une chaîne d'interopérabilité pour ces données du terrain de l'archéologie, ces données très profondément métiers, très basiques de l'archéologie. Nous avons été inspirés évidemment par beaucoup d'autres acteurs. Le nuage de mots-clés que vous voyez est tiré du projet européen Ariadne. Vous reconnaissez peut-être le diagramme en bas à gauche qui est tiré des travaux très intéressants de Bruno Almeida et de ses collègues autour de la construction d'une ontologie des lampes à huile en céramique qui nous a également beaucoup inspirés. Et nous avons, dans le cadre de ces projets, construit plusieurs micro-thésaurus qui sont la préparation du travail actuel, par exemple sur la prospection géophysique. Et maintenant, c'est à toi, Sébastien.
Merci. Donc, l'interopérabilité des vocabulaires archéologiques créés par les chercheurs est complexe pour nous car ces vocabulaires sont multiples. Ils reflètent la diversité des problématiques de recherche des chercheurs, l'évolution de ces problématiques et surtout la variabilité des corpus mobilisés. On va prendre un exemple avec des céramologues de BIBRACTE parlant d'un tesson, le tesson qui est à l'écran. Ils en parlent comme appartenant à la forme assiette, au type A15 et à une catégorie qu'ils appellent PG-FIN-LF. Ce vocabulaire mobilise de facto des critères implicites. En effet, pour les céramologues de BIBRACTE, une catégorie informe aussi bien sur la couleur de la pâte, la composition minéralogique de la terre, l'origine des matières premières, le traitement thermochimique ou encore le mode de façonnage. Une forme et le type céramique, quant à eux, renseignent sur le contexte chronoculturel, les données métriques de l'artefact, les différences morphologiques ou la fonction de l'objet. Suivante. Donc, dans sa pratique, l'archéologue manipule en permanence un faisceau d'indices pour décrire un objet et ce faisceau d'indices forme des définitions qu'il restitue classiquement dans des publications spécialisées. C'est le processus habituel en archéologie en France de restituer l'information et le vocabulaire sous forme d'ouvrages spécialisés comme on a à l'écran. Donc la catégorie est décrite ici, les formes et les types. Suivante.
Oui.
Merci. De la même manière, classiquement en France, on partage les tableaux de données, les datasets, comme on a à l'écran, on les publie sous format papier. Donc en fait, c'est la manière de transmettre les données comme les descriptions. Quand les collègues veulent obtenir les tableaux de données, ils en font la demande à celui qui l'a produit et on te met ces données. Entendu, ces tableurs ne sont pas exploitables en l'état, on peut faire du tri, mais lorsque l'on a du vocabulaire qui est nommé, comme les types ou les catégories, il faut absolument avoir le livre papier pour pouvoir comprendre et exploiter ce tableau de données. Et c'est un vrai problème dans le partage des données pour nous. Suivante.
Alors, je reprends la parole, mais je ne mets pas la caméra pour des raisons de débit Internet. En France, les publications scientifiques concernant l'archéologie sont référencées dans le catalogue collectif indexé de la Fédération et ressources sur l'Antiquité, nommé Frantique. Il s'agit d'un catalogue de ressources documentaires référençant les productions de nos collègues, listant les lieux où les livres ou articles peuvent être consultés. Ce catalogue repose sur le thésaurus Pactols, dont la deuxième version sera rendue publique en 2022. Le thésaurus pactole, construit grâce au gestionnaire de thésaurus multilingue et multi-hiérarchique OpenThéso, développé en libre, s'articule autour des principes de la norme ISO 25964, conçue pour le développement, la gestion et l'interopérabilité des langages documentaires. Comme nous pouvons le constater avec la démonstration qui s'affiche sur l'écran partagé, alors là, tu peux cliquer sur le lien, s'il te plaît, Jean-Pierre.
Le lien,
le lien en bleu, oui.
Celui-là?
Oui. Alors, comme nous pouvons le constater avec la démonstration qui s'affiche sur l'écran, l'arborescence du thésaurus pactols respecte une hiérarchie sémantique. Alors, je ne sais pas pour vous, mais moi, ça n'apparaît pas, le changement. Mais...
Là, normalement, tu dois voir pactols, non?
Non,
on ne voit pas, non. Ça n'a pas marché.
Ah.
Le lien, il ne marche pas, je pense.
Alors, attendez, je vais faire autrement. Je vais défaire le partage. Nouveau partage. Où est-ce que je suis? Et hop, et repartage.
Oui, là, c'est bon.
C'est bon, c'est bon, merci.
Là c'est bon.
Merci, excusez-moi.
Donc, comme on peut le voir, en fait, sur l'écran partagé, l'arborescence du thésaurus pactole respecte une hiérarchie sémantique. Elle nous pose toutefois un souci en matière de restitution des productions spécialisées, en ce qu'elle se limite à un vocabulaire de découverte et ne répond pas à nos besoins d'une fine granularité sémantique. Ainsi, le terme le plus spécifique pour décrire une monographie de synthèse sur la céramique du 1er siècle avant notre ère, provenant de l'oppidum de BIBRACTE, est référencé. Alors là, techniquement, on devrait plus le voir dans le catalogue collectif indexé. Voilà. C'était là que je pensais à l'arborescence. C'est ton 4e onglet.
J'arrive à le revoir. Hop.
Voilà. Descends un petit peu, Jean-Pierre.
Oui.
Voilà. Donc là, si on descend un peu, on voit, si tu cliques sur vaisselle, et ensuite tu descends un peu le petit plus à côté de vaisselle. Oui. Voilà, on a donc, c'est la plus fine granularité qu'on ait ici. Donc, c'est le terme préféré, vaisselle de terre cuite. Cela ne rend pas compte de la richesse sémantique correspondant au cœur de métier de l'archéologue, en l'occurrence ici, le céramologue protohistorien, spécialiste de la poterie du centre-est de la Gaule. Il nous est donc apparu nécessaire d'affiner le vocabulaire servant à référencer les ressources documentaires indexées dans le catalogue collectif frantique. Et en d'autres termes, nous avons proposé d'enrichir le thésaurus pactole. Après avoir mûri notre réflexion autour de ce que devait être pactole, nous avons opté pour la création d'un nouveau thésaurus aligné directement sur pactole, mais indépendant. Ce thésaurus nommé BIBRACTE thésaurus, et là tu peux passer sur l'autre onglet OpenThéso, voilà, est géré par l'équipe interne maîtrisant le périmètre thématique et scientifique des concepts qui s'y trouvent, et formalisé également via OpenThéso. Il respecte pareillement la norme ISO 25964, dont il donne une interprétation différente liée à nos besoins particuliers. Ainsi, pour reprendre l'exemple de l'étude portant sur la céramique du site archéologique de BIBRACTE, publiée par nos collègues Sylvie Barrier et Thierry Luguimbul, dont la sortie a été l'occasion d'éprouver notre méthode de constitution du thésaurus, nous avons établi que pour décrire un tesson de céramique archéologique en respectant la norme ISO 25964, nous avions besoin à BIBRACTE d'un minimum de 5 concepts, car entre eux, des fonctions de de ces concepts est constitué d'un terme préféré ou préflabel qui définit la place dans l'arborescence.
Excusez-moi, Guillaume.
Ça a coupé.
Oui, ça a coupé. Oui, votre réseau,
Pardon.
je pense qu'elle n'est pas...
Non, c'est le réseau montagnard.
Ah, d'accord. Je vous en prie.
Donc je reprends. Chacun de ces concepts est constitué d'un terme préféré ou préflabel, d'une définition essentielle qui définit la place du concept dans l'arborescence, définition qui est basée sur des ressources bibliographiques qu'on va voir apparaître à l'écran.
Est-ce que tu vois là ou pas?
Oui, je vois. On a donc le terme préféré en haut. Si on descend un peu, on va atteindre la définition, voilà, qui est dotée donc d'une bibliographie. Et ici, on a été un peu taquin, puisque nous avons placé directement des liens dans la définition qui nous permettent, par exemple, de télécharger directement à partir de la fiche du concept un certain nombre de ressources bibliographiques. Donc ici, on a un alignement sur IDRF, mais on peut aussi atteindre directement le PDF de l'article. Par exemple, là, si on clique sur céramique indigène et faciès culturel, on a téléchargé le document idoine.
Oui, c'est un peu rapide, mais ça, c'est fait.
Voilà. Cette définition se fait naturellement avec du vocabulaire, mais aussi avec une ou des illustrations, comme par exemple des dessins vectoriels ou des photographies téléchargeables. Ici, nous en avons 2. Donc, techniquement, si on clique, on peut rejoindre le tout. On ne va pas faire la démonstration complète, mais croyez-nous sur parole, ça fonctionne. Car, dans tous les cas, l'archéologue revient systématiquement à l'artefact et dispose d'une véritable culture de l'image qui est nécessaire à sa compréhension du mobilier. Dans son processus d'acquisition de l'information, le céramologue de BIBRACTE commence par identifier la catégorie de pâte céramique, donc c'est le concept sur lequel on est. Sur cet exemple, ce que dans leur vocabulaire, Barrier et Luguimbul nomment PG FINLF, c'est-à-dire de la céramique à pâte grise fine et surface lustrée fumigée. À partir de cette identification de la catégorie...
Pardon.
Accordé. À partir de cette identification de la catégorie, tu peux effectivement être sur OpenTeso. Hein.
OK.
Nous associons le tesson à un type morphologique. Dans le cas présent, l'assiette A15, dont on voit techniquement le lien dans la liste. C'est 5e ligne pour toi, Jean-Pierre.
Dans concept associé.
Dans concept associé.
Ah, pardon.
C'est la 5e ligne, voilà.
Ici?
Oui. Donc ça, c'est le type céramique. Alors pareillement avec une définition à la fois sous forme de vocabulaire et iconographique. Et ça nous permet de nous renvoyer à une forme assiette qui est liée, si on clique sur le concept générique type assiette, on tombera sur forme assiette, techniquement. Non, il n'y est pas.
Il est en concept associé juste en dessous, Jean-Pierre, voilà.
Ici.
Voilà.
Exactement.
Ces éléments permettent d'inscrire l'artefact dans un contexte typochronologique, c'est-à-dire de le dater. Ici, donc si on revenait sur PG FINLF, on verrait que l'ensemble, en fait, nous permet de dater le tesson de l'étape 1 du site de BIBRACTE, c'est-à-dire entre 120 et 80 avant notre ère. L'ensemble de ces informations, et là on peut passer à la 3e diapo qui me concernait, si ça ne te dérange pas, Jean-Pierre.
Bien sûr, avec plaisir.
Merci. Donc l'ensemble de ces informations, reproduites pour tous les fragments de céramique, forment une publication, qu'il s'agisse d'un article, d'une monographie, d'un rapport, etc., que nous nommons un référentiel. Ce référentiel ou millésime est convoqué dans le terme préféré ou préflabel, ce qui explique ici la présence de la bulle de 21 entre parenthèses dans chaque concept. Donc, vous pouvez le voir tout en haut. Si tu peux passer ta souris autour.
Ici?
Dans le terme préféré?
Dans le terme préféré.
Tout en haut.
Oui, tout en haut, voilà.
Vous voyez, donc on a Barrier-Luguimbul 2021. En l'occurrence, cette ressource concatène une ribambelle de concepts proposant notamment, et là on peut revenir à la diapositive s'il te plaît, proposant notamment 53 catégories de céramique, 25 formes et 423 types de céramique listés sur le site pour la période d'occupation de l'oppidum de BIBRACTE, soit autant de concepts nécessaires pour nos recherches qui nous invitent à enrichir sémantiquement le thésaurus.
Sébastien, tu prends le relais peut-être?
Oui, alors, est-ce que tu peux recliquer sur le concept de vaisselle céramique, s'il te plaît? Voilà, pour aller dans
Attends, je termine juste, Sébastien.
Vas-y.
Si on clique donc sur ce compte, où l'on peut donc voir références bibliographiques, ISBN, ISSN, mots-clés, etc. On peut également voir que toutes les illustrations peuvent être téléchargées individuellement ou intégralement sur le dépôt Nakala. C'est donc le dernier paragraphe. Voilà. Et là, je te cède la parole, Sébastien.
Merci. Donc, en fait, l'intégralité des illustrations qui sont inscrites dans le thésaurus sont disponibles au téléchargement et à la visualisation dans l'entrepôt Nakala. Donc, toutes les illustrations sont là et on peut télécharger directement le fichier. Jean-Pierre est en train de le faire et vous avez accès à l'information. Donc là, Jean-Pierre va ouvrir le fichier qu'il a téléchargé sur son ordinateur. Vous avez les droits sur cette illustration et ce fichier est doté de métadonnées. Si tu peux aller dans les propriétés du document, voilà. Dans les métadonnées, l'intégralité des informations ont été remplies, structurées au format Dublin Core, et nous avons le lien vers l'identifiant du concept du thésaurus pour pouvoir retrouver la description de cette illustration si on arrive par l'image à découvrir la vaisselle céramique de BIBRACTE. Donc en fait, les données sont vraiment liées. L'image est liée au thésaurus, au vocabulaire, et le vocabulaire est lié au thésaurus comme faisant partie d'un tout. Merci Jean-Pierre. Slide suivante. Voilà. Donc, cette construction autour du vocabulaire contrôlé en partant sur le vocabulaire de la recherche nous a permis de sortir de la voie traditionnelle de la publication par le papier pour mettre en place un prototype de diffusion en ligne. Le tableau de données qu'on a montré au début, qui n'est pas exploitable dynamiquement, peut le devenir grâce au vocabulaire. Et là, ce même tableau qu'on vous a montré au début, on peut le télécharger maintenant parce qu'il est déposé sur un entrepôt pérenne. Et donc, une fois qu'on a téléchargé ce document, on peut l'ouvrir. Donc là, je laisse le temps à Jean-Pierre de...
Est-ce que vous voyez mon écran?
Voilà.
Oui.
Ok, il est là.
Voilà, il est là.
Et je vais l'ouvrir dans OpenOffice.
Voilà.
Excusez-moi, on doit terminer bientôt. Merci.
Oui, on n'en a plus que pour une minute.
Merci.
Voilà, donc le tableau de données est maintenant diffusable, toujours sous forme de tableur, et on a intégré le vocabulaire de manière dynamique, c'est-à-dire qu'on peut créer des tableaux de données indépendamment du vocabulaire, et là, si on clique sur n'importe quel terme, on repart à sa description sur le thésaurus. Ça nous permet de diffuser massivement des données archéologiques pour que nos collègues archéologues puissent les reprendre, faire des statistiques avec et avoir l'intégralité de la définition et du vocabulaire produit par leurs collègues. Donc, on a réussi à boucler les data avec le vocabulaire en prenant vraiment le vocabulaire comme le cœur de l'interopérabilité de nos données. À toi, Jean-Pierre.
Voilà. En conclusion très rapide, on a essayé de montrer que l'outil Thésaurus, comme ça a été évoqué ce matin par l'un de nos collègues, par M. Morero González, que l'outil Thésaurus était à même de rendre compte des vocabulaires très spécialisés qui pouvaient être nécessaires par chercheur, en quelque sorte, suivant les uns et les autres. Et en même temps qu'il était nécessaire, comme ça a également été évoqué par notre ami du backbone Thésaurus, de disposer d'un vocabulaire qui agit comme un hub, d'un vocabulaire pivot, pour faire le lien entre les différents vocabulaires spécialisés. Ce qui est important de noter aussi à ce stade, et ce sera notre conclusion finale, si j'ose dire, ce sont deux choses. D'une part, que ces vocabulaires spécialisés ne peuvent être réalisés qu'en concertation très étroite avec les scientifiques de terrain, en quelque sorte. Et donc, il s'agit de constituer des collèges, des groupes de travail, comme vous avez dit tout à l'heure, entre d'une part des documentalistes ou des terminologistes qui maîtrisent l'art d'organiser les termes et les concepts, et les archéologues scientifiques qui, eux, maîtrisent la signification profonde de chaque concept. Mais d'autre part, l'outil Thésaurus, par le jeu des alignements successifs, nous permet de réaliser déjà une forme d'interopérabilité à moitié machine, à moitié humaine, mais tout à fait réelle, puisque en construisant, on parle de la céramique gauloise en France, on a le Thésaurus de BIBRACTE qui est référence pour le centre de la France, on a un autre Thésaurus qui s'appelle Dicocer qui est la référence pour le sud de la France. On a matérialisé sur cette image une équivalence entre un concept de BIBRACTE et un concept du sud de la France. Et ces concepts peuvent être alignés à travers l'outil Thésaurus et produire une discussion scientifique entre les uns et les autres. C'est notre mot de la fin. Nous vous rendons la parole.
Merci à tous les trois pour cette intéressante présentation. Il s'agit vraiment d'un travail en profondeur et collaboratif. Félicitations.
Merci.
Je vous en prie. We move on to questions and comments. Are there any? If so, you can share them in the chat or raise your hand and share them with us. You may speak in Portuguese, English, French, or Spanish, according to your preference.
Já desliguei, não já? E tirei a imagem, sim.
Bruno?
I have a question. It's not really a question, it's more of a comment. I would like to congratulate you, Sébastien, Guillaume, and Jean, for your impressive work. It's really impressive, your approach with regard to controlled vocabularies as interoperability tools between specialized knowledge and terminologies, and also more communicative, as it were, or documentary vocabulary such as Pactol. It's really impressive work that you are doing. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More questions or comments? No? Perhaps after.
Si je peux juste ajouter quelque chose en français, désolé, mais ce qu'on essaye de montrer et ce qu'on communique auprès de nos collègues, c'est que l'outil Thésaurus est vraiment un outil que les chercheurs peuvent s'approprier pour décrire leur propre vocabulaire, construire leur définition, et que plus ils investiront massivement dans cet outil, plus le partage des idées se fera. Après, à nous d'organiser collectivement l'interopérabilité, mais c'est vraiment la base d'avoir un outil commun pour partager ces mots.
Merci, Sébastien. More questions or comments? Okay, we move on. The next presentation belongs to Susana Medina, who will present us the project of the Tesouros de Instrumentos Científicos em Língua Portuguesa. Susana is a museum curator, currently responsible for the museum project at University of Porto, Faculty of Engineering, a guest assistant at the Faculty of Arts and Humanities of University of Porto, lecturing on projects for museums, holds a master's degree in museum studies and a postgraduate degree in European cultural planning, is graduated in history of art, has been involved in several collaborative projects related to the technoculture, digital university museums, and standardization in museums. Member of the Museum Information System Working Group, project team member also of Tesouros de Acervos Científicos em Língua Portuguesa. Susana, thank you so much for being here today with good presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to share my presentation. Hope you are watching it. Yes. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to welcome you to my presentation and wish you a good afternoon to everyone. I will start my presentation by thanking the organization Infrastructura ROSSIO, Centro de Linguística da NOVA, a Biblioteca de Arte e Arquivos da Fundação Calouste Gulbenkian e a Faculdade de Ciências Sociais e Humanas da NOVA for the invitation. My lecture will be about a fruitful collaboration between the Museum of Astronomy and Related Sciences in Rio de Janeiro, the National Museum of Natural History and Science of the University of Lisbon, and other 10 Portuguese and Brazilian science museums. A long cooperation project was then settled in 2006 to create a Tesouros for scientific instruments. The research project enabled museums from Portuguese-speaking countries to control and normalize scientific instrument terminology. This pioneer tool was delivered in 2011. The project, coordinated by the MAST and MSHE from Lisbon, was supported by national funding agencies for science, research and technology of both countries. A synthesis of the joint effort and main outcomes still seems important and relevant, so I'll give you a brief description of the project and also outline some aspects of the process based on a collaborative network. So within the next 30 minutes, I will present you the project, how we have planned the Tesouros, how we have built it, and some conclusions, and of course, bibliography. The presentation of scientific heritage is a major challenge in present-day society. Dispersed through a multitude of institutions, from universities to schools and research laboratories, and unprotected by cultural heritage legislation, the preservation of scientific heritage needs to gradually change from a museum multi-based approach to an approach increasingly oriented towards an in situ preservation sustained by networks and partnerships at national and international scale. Communication barriers can have a significant impact on museum staff daily professional lives. The way people interact with each other can vary depending on the demographic or cultural differences, and science museum professionals from Portugal and Brazil were aware of these differences. So a Tesouros would be a vital and valuable tool to address this issue and others, and would allow us to represent content in a consistent manner and enable researchers, museum staff, and the public to find the content easily and quickly, provide content discovery and information organization, and would also help us in our common activities. So the project began under the coordination of the Museum of Astronomy and Related Science in Rio de Janeiro and Museum of Science in the University of Lisbon. Both realized that few reference materials exist, both in Portuguese and in other languages. Since 2006, and inspired by similar experiences in France and Italy, they have been involved in the production of a thesaurus of scientific instruments in Portuguese. This task involved, from the beginning, a network of institutions. From Portugal, along with MAST and MCUL, the following 10 institutions were involved. Science Museum in Coimbra, Science Museum in Porto, Museum of the Faculty of Engineering, Museum of Physics of the Institute of Engineering, and Museum of Engineering in Porto. In Brazil, institutions were Pedro II Secondary School from Rio, Museum of the Polytechnic School in Rio de Janeiro as well, Dynamic Museum of Science and Technology in Juiz de Fora in Minas Gerais State, Pharmacy Museum Lucas do Amaral in Minas as well, Museum of Science and Technology of the Mining School in Ouro Preto, and the Center of Memory of Pharmacy in Ouro Preto as well. So since the beginning, goals and scope was settled. The main goal was to develop a terminological thesaurus for scientific collections that could be an information retrieval tool, a facilitator of communication between science and technical museums within the Lusophone sphere, especially in Portugal and Brazil. Specific goals were to identify terms used in historical scientific collections, to classify, standardize, control, and relate terminology, to define standard images to represent each scientific instrument, to create a thesaurus with scope notes, and to make results available to the museological and scientific community. The scope were teaching and researching scientific collections of exact sciences, mathematics, and engineering. Medicine and natural history collection were not included in the project. The thesaurus should be an important terminology control and access tool for museums and other institutions with collections of scientific instruments. It would also include an illustrated glossary and be universally accessible in 2011 in print, DVD, and online as well. Key moments were certain points that had shown important achievements and the complexion of major phases of the project. Like project milestones, they were extremely important for assuring effective management and keeping the thesaurus network on track. Oh, sorry, I flipped one. So the method, we have used to structure the thesaurus with a bottom-up method. So groups of subject experts to serve as advisors were created, and a representative already indexed document was chosen as a reference. So it was the Thesaurus des Objets Mobiliers from the Palissy days. The lists of designations and objects definitions provided by network partners were our thesaurus primary sources. The original function of the objects was adopted as a classification criterion used for, and the project starts with definition of objects function of the artifacts, a working glossary. Lists of terms were then grouped, studied, reviewed, and organized using a variety of resources as aids. Definition, concepts, and relationships were studied and formed the thesaurus structure. Partners, individually in working groups or in plenary sessions, produced all the texts and comments, debated terms whose meaning or usage was unclear, and provided object-related images. A draft thesaurus was then produced, index tested, and revised. And now the key moments. So I was saying that key moments were these points that had shown some important achievements and the completion of major phases of the project. Like project milestones, they were extremely important for ensuring effective management and keeping the thesaurus network on track. This is the thesaurus des objets mobiliers that I've talked about two slides ago. About the working groups. The working groups within the networks were teams of professionals brought together to accomplish specific tasks. The task often involved analyzing a problem, formulating a solution, and making recommendations. The working groups had the benefit of a broad range of experience, skills, and points of view. So we had this GT, so working groups, on images, on the scope notes, software, website, concepts, products, and searching. Thesaurus is built to be used to, so the greater the audience, the greater the likelihood that this will happen. So the first website is this one, and it was a sort of a notification of intent to alert subject experts and professionals in the field who might be interested in using the thesaurus in the future. Now I'm going to let you know more about the construction of the thesaurus. The thesaurus that I've shown you before was based on a workshop method. These workshops were sometime joined the two teams or were national ones. This one, the first one in Portugal in 2008 in Porto, in my faculty, was a national one. The tasks were these ones. So we had to select and organize the terms that were included in designation lists from the contributions of the Portuguese institutions involved. And this formed the purge list one. Then we have created a working group to redefine the list, to pre-organize synonyms, related terms, and complex names. The initial list of 1930 terms was reduced to a new one of 1,500. It was the purge list 2. We have to research for missing terms in other sources about scientific instruments, in other catalogs of other science and technology museums and manufacturers, and the compiled terms were integrated in the purge 2 list in the next phase. We have also created the most specialized working groups like classification, images, scope notes, glossary, and sources. We have presented and debated what the next steps would be and visited partner museums in Porto. The results were the study and selection of terms from the instrument list, as well as the machine one, the organization and creation of the image database, and the study on digital platform for thesaurus. We've started our glossary, settled thesaurus structure by technical standards, and reported activities and updated procedures manual. The next one, the next workshop was still in Lisbon. I'm only mentioning Portuguese workshops and joint workshops, not the Brazilian ones. So the next one was in 2009, and we've got these results. We've merged PT and BR lists and carried out new purges related to the duplicate terms, debated on adopted methodology and Thesaurus structure, and clarified Thesaurus software requirement specification that should be free and stable. Then in Rio de Janeiro workshop was a joint one. So the PT and BR teams were together working for a week. So the project reached by that time its highest point. We got scientific validation, structure, and final lists of index terms. Then we've settled the final classification and top terms list, settled criteria for scope notes, image bank, and top term definitions. We've also started to discuss about development of a software that could give structure to this thesaurus within a public-private partnership. This is one of the examples of the a part of the classification proposal. The classification was done by knowledge areas based on classifications that were used in partners museums and Brazilian National Council of Scientific and Technological Development. The proposal met the specific needs of the project. This is an example of the structure and term relationships of the thesaurus, as terms were arranged into a hierarchical tree structure using parent-child, whole part, and instance relationships. And as you can see, this one is about machines, scientific instruments, and measure instruments. We've also have a huge amount of guidelines that were used to provide an introduction to and advice on how to construct hierarchical tree structures that were following the standards and practices in partners museums. These guidelines offered advice on how to bridge also vocabulary gaps. Data was collected in spreadsheets like this one, where the main elements of the thesaurus was registered and shared. Terms and concepts, relationships, scope notes, classification, but also history notes and definitions of the preferred terms were registered here. Additional notes describing the other aspects of a term, such as presence in museums' assets, were also created to be displayed to the users in the future online thesaurus. Final activities were devoted to the conclusion of thesaurus, of the first edition of the thesaurus, but we also discussed thesaurus relationship, features, and notes that should be supported and tested in a trial run and updated if records were amended. A review of the constructed thesaurus was undertaken by subject experts and professional users. This review highlighted some gaps in the thesaurus, missing or redundant features, as well as some usability issues that needed to be fixed before the disseminations. If you want to check it out, this is the URL, so you may use it and consult every time you need. It's still on. Some conclusions came across by the end of the project. To partners, the collaborative networks was important as a product, as important as the product itself. It gave benefits to partners as a result of its performance and in the collaboration process, complementary and parallel activities. It was also a source of positive motivation to museum professionals involved. We've also created a network of like-minded peers that is still a great source of advice in our days. To collections, the main benefits were revaluation and greater institutional recognition of collections. And to users, it seems to be that published in a widely recognized format that can be easily reused by other professionals and cultural heritage institutions, both in Lusophone countries and communities in the world, is the main benefit. I shared with you some of the bibliography that may be read to know a little bit more of this project, and I thank you all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Susana. Congratulations for your work.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We move on to questions and comments. Are there any? If so, you can share them in the chat, raise your hand. You may speak in Portuguese too, there's no problem. Don't be shy. Anyone? Jean-Pierre Girard.
I'm sorry, I speak very frequently. Did you encounter specific difficulties inside or for constituting the working groups or inside the working groups, or something you didn't expect to have to deal with?
The main difficulties were the distances. Were the distances, and we are not used to use Zoom tools as we are doing nowadays. We were forced to do it. So if we couldn't meet in presence from time to time, I think it would be very difficult to do this work. I think it's the main problem that we've faced in the network.
Okay.
Yes, I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
More questions?
But there's one in the chat.
Yes, Nina Camutinha asks you, Susana, this thesaurus is also available for free to universities.
Yes, it is. It's in you can check that website address, and you may use it for free. Yes.
More questions?
Welcome.
If they aren't, perhaps we move to the coffee break and return in 15 minutes. Professor Ruth.
There is another question in chat, sorry.
Susana, o thesaurus tem sido atualizado?
Não, infelizmente não. Infelizmente não. O thesaurus, como falei há pouco, foi...
Perhaps you can answer in English.
Oh, yes, of course. Unfortunately not. because funding is over and we have to search for another one to do the maintenance and the refreshment. And we still have a huge amount of terms that are not part of the thesaurus that is public. So we really would like to go a little bit further, but we need to find more funding to do it.
Thank you, Susana. More questions? Perhaps I just highlight the importance of collaborative work between the information science professionals, whether they are librarians, archivists, and specialists in each area. It's very important within the working groups. On one hand, we ensure the formal standardization, and in the other hand, the semantic standardization ensured by the specialists, as Jean-Pierre Girard said before. This aspect, it's very important. More questions, comments? Elise Santiago demands you, do you have plans to link it with other languages, Susana?
No, it was really the main scope of the project was to build a Portuguese thesaurus of Portuguese terms. Yeah, only.
More questions? Maria Guedes asks you, Susana, how do you plan to do that maintenance? Have you considered an open forum?
An open forum would be great, yes. But we haven't discussed it for the latest 2 years. Probably we might come back and plan it. Yes, it would be nice.
Jean-Pierre Girard says, but other foreign scientists should align their vocabulary with yours.
Yes, that would be great. So there are lots of great perspectives to return to the thesaurus. Yes, we should think about it. Yes, thank you.
Yes, and eventually propose a new project. It seems so interesting that, well, in this context, having a multilingual thesaurus would be very useful. And in fact, we would have, how do you say that, un point de partida, un point de départ.
Starting point.
Starting point.
Starting point, yes, exactly. That we could have a starting point. And it's very interesting. And another link, very distant, but a link that I can see, and it would be useful for me. It's that we are working with lexicographical data. So we are working with dictionaries, and as you know, every entry has a domain label, and looking for domain labels, and we try to share these domain labels. So we are working on this, and it would be very interesting. And I will take a look at what you did in order to better classification, or classification that could be used in a transversal way. So you should restart thinking about the project. And
we should meet again. We should meet again. We are we are getting together for other projects in other areas, but I think that we should rethink and have a new project based on this one, and aligned with other institutions as well, and new knowledge about the topic. Yeah.
Elise Santiago says that the traduction is very hard. The traduction of the terms is sometimes very hard. It will be useful to translate the terms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Should be fun, yes.
More questions, comments? No? Okay, if they aren't, we move on to the coffee break and return in 15 minutes, Professora Ruth, Bruno, at 3:15?
Yes.
Yes?
That's right.
It's fine for me.
It's fine to you? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you later.
See you later.
Hello, thank you for still staying with us. We move on to the next presentation, which will be in Portuguese. This presentation belongs to Ana Paula Figueiredo. Ana Paula will present us the new information system of CIPAI. Ana Paula Figueiredo has a PhD in Art, Heritage and Restoration, University of Lisbon, with specialization in monastic conventual religious architecture. Since 2020, it's responsible of the Division of Archives, Documentation and Library of Forte Sacavém, Direção-Geral do Património Cultural DGPC. Joined the CIPA project, developing works related to the controlled vocabularies and its application in the information systems of the DGPC. Ana Paula, thank you so much for being here with us. Good presentation. The floor is yours. You can share your screen, please.
Boa tarde, estão-me a ouvir bem?
Sim, sim, estamos.
Pronto, ótimo.
Obrigada.
Boa tarde, muito agradeço o convite em nome da DGPC para estar presente a apresentar o trabalho que estamos a desenvolver e a querer retornar, a colocar visível para todo o público e todo o investigador que o deseja utilizar. Ora bem, estou no Forte Sacavém, não conheça, desde já endereço um convite para marcarem uma visita, com todo o prazer a faremos. E no Forte Sacavém está assediado o Sistema de Informação para o Património Arquitetónico. O Sistema de Informação é composto por uma base de dados de inventário e uma gestão de arquivo, que nasce no final do século XX no contexto da Direção-Geral dos Edifícios e Monumentos Nacionais. Em 2007, esta instituição, que tinha nascido em 1929, é extinta, e o serviço é integrado no Instituto de Habitação e Reabilitação Urbana, o IRU. É aí que o CIPA vai ter uma função algo distinta do que lhe tinha sido atribuída no início, que era sustentar a investigação para intervenção em património edificado ou cultural. Com o IRU, o objetivo é um bocadinho alterado e considera-se que a base do CIPA é bastante consistente para servir de base à gestão e ao ordenamento do território. Em 2015, sofremos um pequeno revés, ou não, fomos integrados na Direção-Geral do Património Cultural. O IRU não quis dar continuidade a esse projeto. A DGPC integrou-nos, talvez em boa hora o tenha feito, uma vez que o IRU tinha dinheiro, a cultura não, mas está interessada no nosso trabalho e a dar continuidade ao mesmo. Fomos integrados na Divisão de Património Imóvel, Móvel e Material da DPIMI e em 2020 foi criada a Divisão de Arquivos, Documentação e Bibliotecas, sediada no Forte de Sacavém. Ora bem, o repositório do CIPA é composto por cerca de 34 mil registros de inventário de património arquitetónico, tudo disponível online, 43.055 desenhos, 639.025 fotografias e 2.349.603 páginas textuais que contam a história da intervenção da DGEM no contexto da construção de imóveis do Estado ou de intervenção em património cultural. O que aconteceu é que o arquivo do CIPA, ao contrário da maior parte dos arquivos que não estão tirados para a área da arquitetura, apresenta vários níveis de descrição arquivística, nomeadamente ao nível da peça. E, logo desde o início, verificou ser imprescindível a criação de termos indexantes de descritores que nos permitissem perceber ao investigador pesquisar da melhor forma possível o que aquela imagem representava e porque é que ela foi captada. Inicia-se em 2001 o projeto do Tesouro, com o principal objetivo de controlar a terminologia utilizada na produção, representação, pesquisa e exploração de conteúdos no âmbito do sistema de informação que estava a ser construído. Começou numa parceria com a Universidade Autónoma. Foi, no entanto, perceptível que o projeto não avançava à velocidade pretendida e começou a ser desenvolvido internamente. No projeto foram então envolvidos 23 técnicos da área de inventário, dirigidos pela chefia de arquivo na ocasião, Dr. João Vieira.
Desculpe, Paula, desculpe interrompê-la. Estamos a ouvir a sua comunicação com bastantes interferências. Acha que poderá colocar os auriculares?
Estou com os auriculares.
Está, ok. É que temos aqui alguns participantes que assinalaram essa questão e de uma forma geral, portanto, estamos a ouvi-la com bastante interferência. Ok.
Vamos
obrigada.
Ver se melhora a qualidade.
Ok, muito obrigada.
Bem, o tesouro de referência foi, algo que já todos falámos aqui em todas as outras intervenções, o tesouro do Getty, e visava essencialmente várias áreas em que o arquivo tinha documentação e que o inventário desenvolvia conteúdos sobre a arquitetura, documentação, paisagem, território e urbanismo. Está a ouvir melhor?
Sim, ligeiramente. Obrigada.
O que acontece é que este tesouro esteve online, foi construída uma base de dados para o desenvolver, o tesouro esteve online de 2001 a 2011. Portanto, a empresa deu insolvência, não foi possível dar continuidade à base de dados e, com a alteração do site em 2011, não houve continuidade da sua manutenção online. Ora bem, o know-how que começámos a utilizar na construção deste tesouro teve a ver basicamente com os projetos que estavam a ser desenvolvidos na área do inventário. E foi eles o projeto de estudo da arquitetura judicial, um projeto financiado pela FCP, que deu origem a variadíssimos termos na área da arquitetura judicial e prisional. Um outro projeto também que passava toda a área do Mediterrâneo, que tinha a ver com o estudo da arquitetura da terra, como representantes portugueses, o arquiteto Vítor Mestre e a arquiteta Maria Fernandes, e que esteve na base também da criação de um léxico de vários elementos da arquitetura popular, bem como a arquitetura militar e a arquitetura religiosa, que tinham valências na área do inventário à data. Ora bem, foram então criados o tesouro CIPA, com vários microtesauros. Neste momento temos 14 microtesauros, microtesauros de agentes, de atividades e processos, aglomerados urbanos, atributos, edifícios e estruturas construídas, o maior, iconografia, materiais, objetos, organismos vivos, e este dependia-se quer a existência do inventário da paisagem, quer com o do arquivo, os micro-organismos que existiam nos vários suportes, paisagem, como já referi, estilos e movimentos, histórico e artísticos, registros e documentos, sistemas de instalações sociais e unidades territoriais. Este tesouro, estamos a ver aqui o back-office do dito, era possível, a partir dele, assim que abríamos a base de dados, abriam os vários microtesauros, podíamos navegar dentro do microtesouro tesouro, ou por termos, eles apareciam-nos arborizados. Temos um número ilimitado de hierarquia, o maior que nós temos são 11, temos 11 termos até ao 11º nível hierárquico, ou poderíamos fazer pesquisa por palavra. Por exemplo, se fizer pesquisa por militar, aparecem-nos 84 descritores com este termo incluído. E que passávamos a vê-lo e que nasce, de facto, desse projeto de arquitetura militar que estava a ser desenvolvido internamente, desde a fortificação, o castelo, a fortificação moderna, a fortaleza moderna, peço desculpa para ser mais precisa, portanto, todo este léxico passou a ser desenvolvido. O léxico tinha desde termos sagrados, termos não consagrados e termos guias. Passamos a ver aqui alguns exemplos, portanto, do front office da base de dados. Temos aqui o termo consagrado, propriamente dito, o tesouro a que pertence e o microtesouro em que se encontra, todos eles com um número único associado que lhe permite desenvolver um RI ou um URL para divulgar ou para fazer links parte de outros organismos. Temos a possibilidade de traduzir para inglês, francês, italiano, alemão e espanhol. Uma nota explicativa, existem duas, portanto, o front office dá-nos a nota explicativa na totalidade, o back office dá-nos 2 níveis de nota explicativa, uma simples e uma mais completa, que permite linkar para outros termos dentro do mesmo tesouro. O que nos aparece também são os níveis hierárquicos, portanto, aparecem sempre os 3 níveis superiores, os níveis inferiores, caso eles existam, portanto, temos aqui como filho da cadeia penitenciária, a cadeia geral penitenciária ou a cadeia penitenciária distrital. Podemos colocar também termos relacionados, portanto, eu posso relacionar o mosteiro com o convento, com o emitério, com a igreja monástica e com todos os outros termos dentro do tesouro existente. A possibilidade de colocar regionalismos ou mesmo termos com um âmbito cronológico definido. O que nos permite, e acho que é uma grande valia, tal como nos apresentavam há bocado no caso daquele léxico, daquele tesouro francês de arqueologia, é a associação de imagens. As imagens estão no arquivo, tem por caso um documento arquivístico e vai ler diretamente toda a informação que elas trazem com ela, que está associada. Estamos aqui a ver mais algumas imagens. E é que o tesouro que neste momento está um bocadinho morto para o mundo, mas que está ainda vivo para quem aqui trabalha no CIPA, o que é que ele está a ser útil neste preciso momento, apesar de não estar a ser editado. Portanto, com o projeto ROSSIO em que estamos integrados, e um dos objetivos é disponibilizar documentação com linguagem indexada, com indexantes segundo normas específicas do Dublin Core, e que o tesouro está a alimentar e que nos está a permitir afinar toda a linguagem controlada que estamos a associar às peças que existem em arquivo. Assim, vou passar só alguns exemplos. Temos, por exemplo, a base do órgão da Igreja de Santa Casa da Misericórdia de Tomar, com uma inscrição e que nos permite, e que existe no nosso tesouro, no microtesouro de registro e documentos, no tipo de inscrição, segundo o teor, temos inscrição comemorativa de construção. E é esse ponto que nós vamos associar exatamente ao tesouro CIPA, aos 10 descritores que poderemos desenvolver para o ROSSIO e que temos a pintura sobre madeira, cartela, grisalha, inscrição latina ou a inscrição comemorativa de construção. Está a ser extremamente útil ainda para outros elementos. Esta fotografia é interessantíssima, é uma intervenção de reconstituição ou remodelação da ponte de Lagoncinha, é uma ponte classificada, existente na região do Minho, com a reconstrução dos arcos, e o que acontece é, se quisermos aplicar o mesmo descritor a toda a base de dados, a todas as linguagens controladas que estamos a desenvolver para classificar as peças de arquivo, o que nos vai acontecer é que temos que ir ao termo que consagramos. E o termo que consagramos foi o arco de volta perfeita, apesar de termos mais 6 termos que dizem exatamente a mesma coisa e que são termos não consagrados. Como é que nós chegamos ao termo que vamos consagrar perante a existência de 7 termos com igual significado? Normalmente, portanto, vamos consultar léxicos de outros países, qual o que é mais aproximado, vamos tentar designar como termo consagrado aquele que é mais consensual. Caso não existam ou haja uma grande diversidade em termos de termos utilizados, normalmente optamos por consagrar o termo mais referido na nossa base de dados de inventário. Também aqui temos o arco de volta perfeita consagrado e que está já indexado a esta ponte. Poderia continuar aqui com as abóbadas, existem pelo menos 20 tipos de abóbadas. Nós partimos da linguagem controlada para chegar, eu não vou dizer uma abóbada em estrela, porque consagramos no tesauro a abóbada estrelada. Ou, por exemplo, para uma fotografia de um património integrado, este registro de azulejos da Misericórdia de Freixo de Espada à Cinta. Vamos procurar o que é que nós temos no nosso microtesauros de iconografia, e na iconografia religiosa, na cristã, temos as obras de misericórdia, as corporais, e dentro das corporais está exatamente o visitar os enfermos. Peço desculpa, ficou trocado. E cá está a visitar os enfermos, é o que está representado neste painel de azulejos de misericórdia. Bem, neste momento temos uma nova tarefa em mãos. A DGPC tem 25 bibliotecas, com um número imenso de registros de livros associados, todas elas com descritores. À dada BFS pertencem apenas 4 bibliotecas, a da arqueologia, a da conservação em museus, a do património e a do Forte de Cavém. E o que neste momento estamos a tentar desenvolver, e penso que vamos poder tirar proveito da futura, quiçá, aliança com a Biblioteca Nacional no projeto ROSSIO, iríamos tirar algum proveito para criar um léxico comum, um tesauro, porque o que pode acontecer é que alguma destas bibliotecas tem descritores a vários níveis. Por exemplo, enquanto a Biblioteca de Arqueologia, apesar de não hierárquicos, nos apresentar vários tipos de arquitetura para classificar os seus registros bibliográficos, a Biblioteca do Museu de Coníndriga, por exemplo, só tem arquitetura e arquitetura romana, que é que lhe interessa. Temos que criar aqui um léxico comum a todas as bibliotecas da DGPC. É um trabalho que está a começar agora a ser desenvolvido. Vamos, segundo aquelas... A metodologia é engraçada porque acaba de ser muito semelhante a todos estes projetos transversais. E o que acontece é que estaremos numa primeira etapa, no terceiro degrau, que há bocado falava a doutora Filipa Medeiros na sua apresentação. Muito obrigada. Fico disponível para qualquer questão.
Obrigada, Ana Paula, pela sua apresentação. Thank you very much, Ana Paula, for your presentation. Já tenho uma questão da Anita Camutim. Visitar os enfermos ou visitas a enfermos usam verbos em descritores?
Estão a ouvir? Optamos por utilizar o que está consagrado na bibliografia construída para a iconografia cristã. Portanto, optamos exatamente por não mudar os termos mais consagrados e mais transversais, que existem em termos de indexação de iconografia cristã.
Avançamos, perguntas, questões, questions, any comments that you like to do? More questions? You can speak freely in Portuguese, French, Spanish, English.
Eu não sou tão poliglota quanto o nosso tesouro.
No? No questions, no comments? Foi muito explícita. Maria Guedes pergunta, tem um tesauro centralizado?
Sim.
Para todas as aplicações da DGPC?
Sim, porque as demais aplicações da DGPC ainda não têm tesauro. Portanto, pelo menos têm linguagem controlada, mas não estruturada do ponto de vista hierárquico. Portanto, é esse trabalho, devo dizer que a DGPC está neste momento a mudar toda a tecnologia de informação, as bases de dados estão todas em atualização ou em processo de alteração, isso vai-nos permitir relançar o tesauro e repensar um bocado o que vai ser o projeto futuro da DGPC. E, portanto, é isso que estamos a fazer e, de facto, o tesauro vai ser transversal a todas as aplicações da DGPC, sim. Vai ser algo multidisciplinar, é possível, a DGPC tem, de facto, equipas com grande know-how nas suas várias áreas e, portanto, vamos utilizar esse know-how, de facto, para desenvolver esta aplicação e torná-la transversal a todas as bibliotecas, ao CIPSE, que é o Sistema de Informação que vai substituir o Matriz, e ao próprio CIPAI. Portanto, vai ser transversal.
Muito bem. Como é disponibilizado?
Neste momento não é. Portanto, como eu disse, temos um problema de descontinuidade do site e ele não está visível, mas vai ser. Nós estamos a equacionar a hipótese de o divulgar exatamente através do ROSSIO, em ligação com o tesouro que está a ser desenvolvido pela plataforma, e é nesse sentido que teremos uma reunião para a semana, ou então avançaremos sozinhos, se não chegarmos a alterar qualquer ideia ou qualquer decisão nesse sentido, mas, portanto, ele estará até março do ano que vem, tem que estar divulgável para todos os utilizadores.
Muito bem. Rosário Salema de Carvalho pergunta, para a iconografia tiveram como referência o Icon Class, traduzido para o português, que é uma vantagem, ou a iconografia do Getty?
Não, a iconografia do Getty não se aplica de facto às nossas necessidades, de algumas pistas, não. O Icon Class, de facto, a doutora Rosário Salema teve o prazer de trabalhar em conjunto com ela e ela sabe que são as nossas fontes.
Não sei se a Maria Guedes ficou esclarecida com a explicação da Paula. Volto a perguntar como idealizam. Ficou. Muito obrigada.
Obrigada.
More comments? Questions? About this presentation? Okay, we move on, and finally, the last but not the least, the presentation de Teresa Barreto Nunes, also in Portuguese language, with a very enigmatic title, Tu que me lês. Teresa Barreto Borges holds a degree in Social Communication, University Nova de Lisboa, a postgraduate degree in Information Science, University of Lisbon. In the 90s, she joined the team at the Documentation and Information Center of the Portuguese Cinematheque as coordinator. Within the scope of her professional activity, she has participated in several international projects, namely the revision of the film cataloging rules of the International Federation of Films Archives, FEUP, and the European Film Gateway Project, coordinator of the Information System Project of the Portuguese Cinematheque and the Cinema Museum. Teresa, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
I wish you a good presentation.
Thank you
very much.
You all hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, just let me open my presentation. So good afternoon. First of all, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be to participate in this workshop. As this is a question of languages, most often, this is just a title to defy you and all of us. I will give you my presentation will focus on the work we have been developing for the indexing of moving images mostly, but it has a background information that I will start with. So in the International Federation of Film Archives was founded in 1938, and soon it became obvious that some rules had to be developed in order to help all the affiliates to deal with their collections, either film and non-film. So in early 70s, the department, the team that worked with the documentation, they developed or started developing a thesaurus for film and TV literature. That means its application is on the books, text materials held by the Cinematheques in order to describe their content and give access in the most useful way for our users. This was a starting point. So it has this scope. It includes all facets on the history, theory, aesthetics, and techniques of film and television. And it was built, first of all, in English, and then it was translated to French. Those two languages are available online at the FEUP website. But then, as there is a third official language of FEUP, which is Spanish, it was also translated into Spanish. And in Lisbon at the Cinemateca Portuguesa, we translated it in the late 70s. Before that, in the 70s, we used the French version, and then decided that our users would prefer a Portuguese version. So we translated the terms, the whole thesaurus into Portuguese. And since then, as it is a collaborative project, we have maintained the update and also let me explain how it works. Every year we can send to the FEUP committee our proposals of new terms for describing textual contents. And then the meeting will decide and will put those terms into those different languages. Okay. As for the presentation, it is a structured alphabetical list, and it has a list of identifiers such as names of people and institutions. The entry terms are presented with or without definition, and they can be simple or compound terms, and also they include non-preferred terms so that we can all speak the same language even if not. The preferred terms are all obviously presented in uppercase, non-preferred terms presented in lowercase, and they also can be plural or singular forms, and they include most of the time scope notes in order to make them more easily to the editor of the information to apply it. It has the semantic relationships as prescribed in the ISO thesaurus. What we decided, so as you can see, we began in the late 70s to use these thesaurus for the bibliographical materials. What we have then decided is to use it also to update it in a form that would include the film or the image terms for this, content description. What was our principle behind this option is that, for instance, images are both generic and specific. This actually follows the work of Elaine Shedford, who in 1986 wrote a very interesting paper on the indexing of images. And an example, an image of the bridge 25 de Abril here in Lisbon, or in Lisbon and Almada, is also just an image of a bridge. If a user doesn't know the specific name or doesn't care about the specific name, he's just looking for an image of a bridge in a certain period or whatever, this way he can go to the upper term and find some occurrences of what he's looking for. So what was the challenge? The challenge is to, first of all, to merge these two, an existing thesaurus in the non-existing thesaurus for all that matters. It didn't exist. It was, we used to describe the content of films and images in a natural language. So for this project, we had to categorize the terms that they aren't categorized in the FEUP thesaurus, and we made these 6 categories of objects: physical objects, people, abstract entities such as topics as, for instance, architecture and film, events, places, and works. Here, works, what they mean is, for instance, a film work is the subject of a book or a review in a magazine, something like that. So all the works can be the subject of another work, actually. This meant also that we had to very clearly establish the distinction between the use of terms, whether we are talking about the description for textual resources or iconographic resources. And this is made thanks to the thesaurus as it was already built. It had, for instance, architects in film. So this is the representation of the profession of architects in films. And then we had also to identify the subgroups of terms that will be narrowed in order to describe the parts. So the example I was giving earlier, bridges in films, this is the broad term for the bridge 25 de Abril in Lisbon. Okay, so if a user doesn't know the name of 25 de Abril or doesn't care, as I said, he may go upper and search for all the content, the parts of bridges in films, or the broader term in itself. In our new information system, it is built like this. We are still working on the revision of this hierarchical structure. So as you can see, in what concerns the places, we also have geographical pointers. So people can go, can browse, can navigate through a map and find what they're looking for. This is how it would appear. This is sorry, I went back. This is the term for a specific film theater here in Lisbon, which is Cinema Alvalade. He belongs to in the tree design. He belongs to film theaters as major, a broader term, and then the results of this term in our information system. So we can see that we have 3 photos and lots of bibliographic textual documents on this film theater. As a rule, an internal rule, this is what it is. We decided that to determine the subject of a film, we would follow this methodology based in layers of information. First, what is seen, then what is heard, and then what is read. Because, for instance, in the silent film, there will be intertitles, that is, the text is in the image, So it may also be an access point or give us some clues to the access points that we must include in our description in order to be retrieved by the users. What we still have to do in terms of this thesaurus structure is also to establish a clear distinction between what are the direct direct images and the fictional ones. I will give you an example. This is an image. This is a photo, a frame of a film on the Carnation Revolution. This is Carnation Revolution Day in the afternoon, okay? And this is the same scene or the same setting, but as it was represented in a fictional film, okay? So if in the beginning, and first of all, we want to describe the non-fiction films, because those are the ones that are more looked for by our users. Also, we plan to include, of course, those representations, fictional ones of certain times in history or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Sorry, because we thought your presentation was in Portuguese. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
It's better like that. We move on to the last period of questions and comments. Are there any? You are welcome. Cecilia Mourão makes a comment, real one image versus fictional image. Thanks. Nita Camuti, novamente uma questão de terminologia. Há espaço para a inclusão de filmes digitais?
There's no difference between the film base, whether it's digital or video or analog. So yeah.
Nick Martins, is there an European archive already in place?
An European archive with I don't understand the question, sorry.
Can you explain better, Nick Martins, please? European Film Archive.
No, we have several projects that include interoperability of data, but there's no such thing as an European Film Archive. There is an association of European Film Archives, and we work together many times, but also only for data or specific projects for exhibition or something like that.
Nita Camutin to everyone. Pontos nos filmes ou pontos em filmes?
Nos filmes is the what we have established in the 70s, because most of the thesaurus is like this, like architecture in cinema or architecture in film. So it was translated as nos filmes, and we keep this this same method. Yeah.
Isilda Raposo, que pontos ler numa imagem foto, que informação retirar?
That's a big question. We try not to create many, not to detail. For instance, hats in films. I would have, I don't know, 400,000 images of people wearing hats in films. So no, that's not that's not the way to describe that content of that image. It would be useless. So we have to balance quite well what are the terms that would be used for describing an image and those who won't be and would be discarded. And then there's also another level of meaning that images can have, and for instance, going all back to the example of the bridges, if it's, for instance, an image of a bridge with lots of fog and so on, it might be, for me, it might be not a melancholic image, but for you, it might be something else. So we won't go into there, of course. We have to stick to what is really visible in the image, what it is about, who is represented, what is represented, to be more specific, the better, in terms of what is that, but no, not going into subject criteria, subject analysis, which would be, won't take us much further.
Ok, dentro das categorias que estabeleceu, pode especificar melhor o que entende pela última works?
Yes, of course. The works are, as I said, these thesaurus began with to be applied for film and TV literature. That is, for textual documents related to film and TV. So, if I have a collection, for instance, the magazine Cahiers du Cinéma, we have made, we continue to do that, the operations of cataloging article by article, that is issue by issue, article by article, and stating what is the content of that text. So if it's a film review, the main term to describe the content would be the film title and the film director. So those are the works. I must also say that this is we have developed an information system that is divided in 5 domains, which correspond to the heritage type of documents that we held in our collections. And so we have the domain of the moving images archive, the domain of the bibliographic collections, the domain of the apparatus collections, the domain of the paper archive collections, and also the domain of the iconographic but not moving collections. So iconographic means, in this case, the photographs, the posters, the lobby cards, the drawings, etc. So they are the system is divided in these 5 great domains, but it's the search is like a federated one. So it would go, it would give the answers of all those domains, which means also that a work which is registered as a film work, for instance, Casablanca by Michael Curtis, that work might be the subject of a textual document, or the subject of a photo or of a poster.
Thank you, Teresa. More questions or comments? Nick Martins? Yes?
I had a question regarding the archiving. There is one study that I learned in university called Movie Galaxies, which is using network theory to try to analyze different films and try to relate the interactions between the main protagonist, the plot of the story. And I was wondering whether social networks were being used in this type of archive, or was thought about it?
No, actually we didn't, and we aren't using, but I can give you an example of a small part of our collections which are available online in our website. It's a section which is entitled Cinemateca Digital, and it has images of it began with the European Film Gateway project, and it for that initial project we had chosen a collection of non-fiction, silent Portuguese non-fiction films. So that was the universe of our contribution to the European Film Gateway, the first one. And for instance, as it is online, we receive a lot of commentaries in the social networks, and not only commentaries, but helpful hints stating, for instance, that bridge over there is actually in my in a small town in the south of Portugal or something like that. So we can easily absorb their contributions thanks to the social networks. But in terms of web services or something like that, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ana Campino asks you if the tool you present us is accessible online or in intranet.
The Thesaurus?
Yes, I think it's that.
Okay.
Thesaurus? I think so.
The Thesaurus is available online in English. The English and French versions are available online in the FEUP website. Ours will be made available when the information system is published in some months.
Okay, Nita Kamutin asks you what approach will be an adaptation and cinematographic adaptation to a romance.
It could be 2 ways, and we can record the novel in our bibliographic database, and then we can relate that novel, that's textual record, with our film database, and stating that this is the adaptation of that work. And also, but also the FEUP Thesaurus already includes terms for literary adaptations. For instance, you can search for all the adaptations on Milan Kundera work, something like that. And you can also search for a specific work, a specific novel by Milan Kundera. So yeah.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Guillaume shared with us the link to the project of BIBRACTE. More questions or comments? No? Perhaps Bruno and Professor Ruth, we can move to the closing session.
Jean-Pierre Girard had a question, I think.
You have a question, Jean-Pierre?
Yes, a very last-minute question. I was impressed by the last presentation, and I asked myself how to link it to the first presentation of the day about the backbone thesaurus, and what kind of connection could be made between either the 2 presentations or the 2 thesaurus by themselves. It's more like question, think than a question. I'm sorry, it's not very precise. That could be a question for Teresa. What link could it be imagined or useful, or I don't know, between the FEUP thesaurus and the BBT?
I think like most of the domain thesaurus would gain a lot if related to the BBT. this is a very specific thesaurus in our case, but it's also international. It can be applied to any film and non-film content. It's specialized that way. So I think, like in Paula also referred that all of these very, very, very specific in a certain field thesaurus could be like micro thesaurus of a broader one. It would be really, really helpful for the users, I think. That's my opinion, but most of us likes the memes. I don't know.
Okay,
but yes, it's a great point to reflect upon. Yeah, thank you.
Nick Martins.
Nick Martins.
Nick Martins.
I was just wondering, now after Jean-Pierre, what he was mentioning, and I was wondering if you also have contact, perhaps Netflix, since they have become so influenced in the film market, to know how they categorize the films and they try to arrange and like, because it's ish to an extent, it's a similar archiving dilemma.
Yeah, but I don't have any connection, and I don't have any knowledge of their work in what concerns the description of archive materials. No, sorry.
So if we don't have more questions, so we move on to the closing session. So I would like to thank all the participants. So this morning we had around 130 people who attended the session. This afternoon I saw 101. Now we have 87. So I think it has been a success. We are very grateful that you attend the whole day. It's not easy. We are all very tired, I think, and you still manage to continue with us. So thank you very much to all of you. I would of course like to thank Bruno Almeida and ROSSIO Infrastructure to organize the event with Filipe Medeiros from the Fundação Calouste Gulbenkian and the Centro de Linguística da Universidade Nova de Lisboa. It was a pleasure to work with these institutions. And well, we hope that this was the first one from several other ones that we are going to organize during the next years. And so we will keep in touch. If you would need some more information, please contact Bruno, Filipe, or myself, knowing that Bruno and Filipe are probably the better contact than myself. So thank you very much. And I don't know if someone wants to say something, Bruno or Filipe and Bruno, or someone else.
Just say on behalf of the Art Library and Archives of the Calouste Gulbenkian Foundation, we thank you all for being with us today. It was an intense of sharing day and reflection. We hope that this workshop has lived up to your expectations. We wish you a good work with the controlled vocabularies. Keep safe, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, on behalf of the ROSSIO Infrastructure, I would like to thank all of our speakers and participants. This was a very interesting workshop with many different perspectives on controlled vocabularies, and I hope that we can have other initiatives of this nature going forward. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Sal. We have here the good context for future projects. I hope that we keep in touch between some of us, between all of us. It would be a little bit difficult, but between some of us, so it would be very nice if you could see that in the group there is someone who is doing something very interesting and that we would like to work together. So thank you very much again, and well, wish you nice holidays if this is the case, and see you very soon somewhere in the world, we hope. Face to face, it would be great. So thank you.